Good morning, everybody. Oh, come on, we can do better than that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's better. I hope you enjoyed the sights and sounds of New York last night. Apparently, a lot of people did, too. Our speaker this morning is someone you all know, or at least thought you knew until yesterday. I thought his name was Joe Sellers, but I guess it's John Sellers now. And I can't say a whole lot, though, because that same congressman looked at me and said, "Oh, you're Polish." And it's like, what gave it away, you know? The secret is out. So I would appreciate if you would all join me in giving a big round of applause and welcome to our General President, and I'm going to stick with his, until he tells me differently, I'm going to stick with the name I know him by, Joe Sellers.
Well, good morning, brothers, sisters, and guests. I would ask. I'd like to start off with a moment of silence and ask everybody to please rise and take off your hats. This past year, we lost four brothers and sisters in the program, and particularly an additional 3 just last month. On June 10th, we lost Michael Olick out of Local 29, and on June 27th, we lost Jake Lefebvre and Stephen Deal out of Local 60, and all those that we have lost over this past year. Thank you. Well, I want to talk about that a little bit. I was sitting in programs yesterday, and I was listening to different caucuses of general committees talk, and I will relate some of that as I go through my comments. But first, I hope you're enjoying New York. I would like to thank John for your introduction and President Prepasich for the invitation to be here and share some thoughts and really learn more about the Transportation Division, about what you do and how you do it. And as General Secretary Treasurer Rich McLeese and I travel through your breakout sessions, we learn more and more each day. We like to thank Sam Naska and Anthony Simon and their committee that put this together. The hospitality is fantastic. This event is great. I enjoy New York. You have to like people, and a lot of people. But being from Philadelphia, it's only a couple-hour train ride for me. So my wife and my family and I have had the opportunity to enjoy New York City over the years and really appreciate being able to come up here during this event. I also like to recognize, and I know John Lisnowski recognized some of the other vice presidents, but I also just want to say that John Helak, who was introduced yesterday, is from Buffalo, New York. So not too far away. And then we got Rocco Terranova is from Chicago. So I met with the Chicago transit guys yesterday. So Rocco certainly knows them and working together with them. So just want to make that connection. Also, we have Tony Iannone. Tony Iannone works out of my office right there in Washington, D.C. He's another Philly guy. Don't hold that against him. And Steve Dodd. Steve Dodd's our sheet metal political action director. Interestingly enough, as you're enjoying the nightlife here, and if you go down to Times Square and really any sign in the city, Steve comes out of the local that makes those and installs all those signs. So all those signs that you see down there are done by smart members. They're fabricated and they're welded to the structure, and they are installed by smart members all throughout Times Square and all throughout the city and this region. So the other interesting fact that you are going to see, if you look where the Walgreens is, right at the point there, on the top of that is where they dropped the ball. So you can see that it says 2017, and right above that is how the ball drops on New Year's Eve. Interestingly enough, Steve's home local fabricates that ball, and they actually drop that ball. So a little bit of interesting facts about New York and the work that we do in the transportation and in the construction and the sign and the diversity of this union and the things and the opportunities that we do have. I really like the theme of your regional meetings here: educate, organize, and mobilize. And I want to touch on each one of them, and I really want to mark a moment when we leave here today about action that we need to take when we go back home. Educate. Frankly, that's why we're here. And you need to educate by being in the seat. You need to be in these sessions, the general sessions. You need to go to the breakout sessions. And you need to learn anything and everything that you possibly can. And in your caucuses that I attended yesterday, sharing that knowledge base that you all have and that you all bring to the table, and the opportunities and the experience that you have, sharing with some of the senior members and maybe the not-so-senior leaders of this organization. And how do we grow together? By lifting ourselves up and lifting ourselves up as an organization and sharing that knowledge base that you have with the person that you're sitting next to, or in the general committee meeting that you're sitting in, or in the breakout session that you're at. How do we do a better job of doing that? Education is a continual involvement of our working life and our leadership life within this union. We can never stop doing that. We can never stop lifting up our brothers and sisters to our left and our right and sitting at our table, because that's how we as a union get better. That's how we as a union can do better when we go back home to represent our members. As leaders of this union, what is our strategy? What is our strategy when we go back home? What is our plan when we go back home? When we sit in these breakout sessions, what are we going to take? What bit of information is vital for us to go back and work on a plan with other leaders in our area, in our regions, whether it's with other general chairmen or whether it's with your local leadership or your local membership? What's important to you right now? And creating that plan and creating that strategy and going home and implementing it is where it's at. Creating the plan here and forgetting about it tomorrow when you go back home doesn't mean a thing. What's the implementation strategy that we need to do? How are we going to launch that idea? How are we going to share that idea that you have sitting in each one of these rooms? You know what? When you walk out of here, I need to do that. And you may have heard me say before that when you come to these meetings, I am in a much better position when I look back 2 years ago and I was at one of these meetings and I could say, you know what? We did that. And I'm telling you this from experience, that there was too many meetings that I went back home and I came to the next meeting and I looked back and I said, what did I do? Did I change the economic conditions for my members? Did I change the safe workplaces for my members? So we need to have that focus. We need to be able to create that plan, to create that strategy, take it back home, and work on it, and the plan is made to be changed. You don't have to etch it in stone today, but you need to continually work on it. So let's mark that moment. Let's mark that moment that we're going to create a plan, create a strategy. Let's not take 10 items. Let's take 2 items. Let's hone our skills. Let's use our talents. Let's use the knowledge base that's around us so that when we come back and assemble next year at this regional meeting or the West Coast regional meeting, we can look back over the year and say, we did that. We may not have got it right in every case, but we'll get it right next time. And we bobbed and we weaved because we had to bob and weave, because the conditions changed, and that's what's going to happen. That's why it's a plan. Ever evolving. How do we plan our work and work our plan? You may have heard me say that before, but really, how do we plan our work and work our plan? And how do we take and carve out a little bit of time to make sure that we're focused on that? Organizing. Organizing's a tough job. It's hard work. But quite frankly, that's what I signed up for. And frankly, that's what you signed up for. How do we organize this industry? Internal organizing, external organizing. Internal being, how do we get them to choose SMART or another organization? I walked into caucus meetings yesterday. That was a big topic, a continuing big topic. And I will tell you that when I go to different caucuses, some caucuses do a great job. And they do a great job at retention. When people elevate, they do a great job at retaining those brothers and sisters. How do we share that? How do we share that game plan? How do we share that ability? So those are some of the things that I think we could do a better job at. This union has to grow. This union must grow. This is for the survival of life as we know it, quite frankly. People are beating down our doors, are beating us up every day. You got to pick ourselves back up together and lean on each other. It's a campaign about relationships in some cases. Sometimes when you're doing that internal organizing, it's about relationships. You know, I heard a speaker yesterday, and they were talking about going to the doctors, and we're not really good at complaining about my knee. And the one presenter says, we need to learn to whine a little bit. My knee hurts. I need to whine a little bit. But we're also not good at sharing what we do. We're not also sharing that we've helped this member, and we've helped that member, and we elevated this, and we've done that, and we continue to do this. And we need to do a better job of that. We're not great cheerleaders for our own advocacies. But what are our members thinking? How do we change that paradigm? So those are some of the things that we need to walk out of here, and how do we reach out? How do we reach out to that group? And under organizing, we, as organized labor, let alone smart, we cannot allow the continued erosion of organized labor. We cannot allow the continued erosion of smart over time. And you know who does that? You do that. And I do that. And we do that together. And it's not going to come because we have a silver bullet. I can't say here. You got to roll up your sleeves. I roll up my sleeves and try to figure it out and work hard every day, day in and day out, to change that paradigm. We can do a much better job, but we need to be strategic. A lot of times we become firemen. Got to put this fire out. I got to put that fire out. I got to put that fire out. Yeah, we do. But we got to focus too. There again, we got to plan our work and work our plan. What's that focus that we have, and how can we do it better? We're all up against it. And organizing, as I said, is a difficult job. You know, I was truly offended during this last recent election down in Georgia when the Republican candidate for Congress said publicly at a debate that I do not support a living wage. Now, I got a lot of bad words I can use right now, but that is unbelievable, and I cannot believe that anybody, let alone a political congresswoman now, would let that roll off her tongue. I and we should be offended. It is no more clear to me of the haves and the have-nots of that statement. And in organizing, day in and day out, you can beat your head against that wall because you're up against the same mentality. But that doesn't mean we don't get up the next day and beat our head against that wall against that same mentality. Because if we don't do that, we won't change it. How can we tolerate, I cannot support a living wage? You all know of corporate salaries. We tend to scrap over the quarters and the dollars. And we got the CEOs that I don't even need to name the names of CEOs that are dragging down multiple millions, hundreds of millions. Oh, and by the way, when they leave, they get this golden parachute. Let's not forget that, for all the good work that they say they've done. Just ask them. They've done a great job. That's the heartbeat of organizing, but it's about bringing those campaigns, and it's about bringing those relationships and getting in, and that personal bond of shaking a brother's hand or a sister's hand and letting them know that you're there, that you're with them. And then brag maybe a little bit about what we do and how we do it and how how we represent our members. Because when I do go into the caucuses, we do talk about that. I would say in most cases, I would say, from what I hear, is the other organization probably has a lesser due structure, and that's how they rate us. But we stand up with representation. But if we don't tell the story, they're not going to know. Because our communication with our members is different than it is when I was that member and when you were that young member. And we need to figure that out. Organizing. The other thing that we don't do a good job at is talking about health care. Now, look at all the stress that, not Joe Sellers, because I belong to a union. And my organization works on my health care all day, every day, to make sure I have the best and the most affordable health care that I possibly can have. And you're going to hear a lot about it from John probably tomorrow at lunch, about national negotiations. But this organization and every organization works on health care. Now, I have family members, very close family members, and I have relatives, and I have friends, and I have neighbors. Their stress levels through the roof, talking about repeal and replace. During those 2 weeks, I couldn't talk them off the ledge because of the stress. And guess what? You alleviate that stress because you're working on your health care. You're working on our members' health care. You're working on their families' health care. You're working on the best coverage that you can. How do we share that story? How do we let the generations of smart members know that we do that all day? And then that stress that their neighbor's feeling, how can they relate that? That I may not have it, but I feel bad for them. Or maybe it's a sister that had a pre-existing condition. And how does she get health care without that? We need to share that we alleviate that stress from our members. And you guys work hard for it day in and day out. And they need to know that. And that's just one example of what we're up against when we're organizing. So that's internal organizing. I want to mark this moment that when we go home, organizing is our job. It's my job. It's your job. It's not somebody else's job. It's our job. Each one of our responsibility to go out there and to organize the unorganized, to make sure that all the members are represented by SMART, by you, and the things that you do for them every day. I'd like to talk a little bit about Mobilize. I've shared with you, there's communication gaps. And how do we meet those communication gaps and the dynamic that's changed in communication just over the last 5 years? How do we keep up with that? Those types of dynamics. How do we keep up with the social media events that are going on? Right? How do we launch new communication tools? So we're trying new things at the International. We're trying to use different tools. I don't know if anybody's seen, we're out there with videos right now. We're trying to show videos, and guess what? The videos aren't a page and a half white paper, right? It's not a page and a half. It's 1:30 to 2 minutes. And you know what? I shared this with a couple caucuses yesterday. I do a lot of work on my phone, my smartphone. And you know what? I can't stand reading a page and a half on my smartphone. So why would I expect a 25-year-old to like to do it? We need to break our messages down. We're trying to do it. 33 characters, right? That's how generations are communicating today. 38 characters, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. We're trying to get out on job sites. We're trying to get out in the locker rooms and meet with members and hear what their concerns are. Listen to them. Listen to what they say. Show them the value of being part of SMART, the value of being smart to your local union, value in being smart. Transportation division. Show them the value of that. How do we reach out to those groups? How do we contact those members? And maybe more importantly, how do we listen to those members? We can't listen to everyone specifically, but as a group we can. And you do. We need to capture that. Quite frankly, we need to capture their energy. We need to get them enthused about their union. And that's tough business, particularly in the environment that we're at today. We're trying to use examples of community, the things that we do, but it all has to come back to the jobs, the jobs, the jobs, the jobs. How do we get the job? How do we get to the safe job? How do we get to the right workplace? Retooling our message is important. We heard Congressman Swazi, I almost said Susie, Congressman Swazi, right, he talked about the bottleneck at the tunnel. The bottleneck at the tunnel. Now, to me, I'm not a transit guy, but the bottleneck at the tunnel is the Holland Tunnel and the new Holland Tunnel they have to put up there to provide service, passenger and rail service, to the Northeast. If that tunnel goes down, the Northeast is shut off, the way I understand it. So he's talking about that. Now, you all know we got invited. Smart got invited to the White House. On June 23rd, we got invited to go meet with the president with other leaders. And at the end of that meeting, the president said, I want you to give ideas to my chief policy writer, who was Stephen Miller, standing right there. I want you to give them a list of projects, maybe even some executive orders of how we could put people back to work. I went to the General Executive Council that next day. We put together a 5-page letter of projects. Had 10 transportation projects on it about, I think it's the Gateway Program or project under the Holland Tunnel, and other projects across this country dealing with transportation and transportation issues that could put our members back to work, that could put more members back to work. And we don't want to be a one-and-done organization. So what do? We gathered another list. And we sent a second letter. That was another 3 to 4 pages of projects and programs. Now, we haven't heard anything back, but we're going to continue. If we got that communication, at some point, we may saturate and get some attention. And we're going to continue. And if you have any of those types of projects in your area that are being held up, whether it's regulatory or whatever the issue may be, if you can get that to us, at some point, we're going to keep sharing this information. We're going to keep sending letters to see how we can put our members to work, how we can get better smart jobs, how we can communicate with the White House and the chief policy writer and see if there's regulations or putting that project, the Gateway project, on the map instead of on the design books or some thought in somebody's head, and other projects that are going on around this country. So those are some of the things that we're going to continue to do. But we got to realize the reason we get that meeting is because of 200,000 members. 200,000 transportation, construction, production members. That's how we get that meeting. That's how we get our voice into that room. Because if we don't attend, then our voice won't be there, and we won't be heard. But if we have that opportunity, we have that window, I believe we got to take it. And with that 200,000 members, and we speak with that voice, there's a better way. When I went to the caucuses yesterday, and we talked about communication, it's about engaging our members. So we just can't have the numbers. We got to have the engagement. We got to have the path forward. How do we harness that enthusiasm? That's the place we need to be. How do we get that and have them pull on the rope instead of pushing on the rope, pushing to them all the time? Let's get them to pull on it and join us in that accomplishment. Where's their value in making that peace or developing that peace? or helping with that safety rule. Yesterday I was sitting in the DLC session, the first one. I don't think it's called that, but it's called something else. And I heard one of the attorneys talking about, and they were talking particularly to the legislative representatives that were in the room, about writing a letter and saying, this is not safe. Whatever this is not safe. Why can't we mobilize for workplace safety? Why can't we wrestle ourselves around that and engage our members for workplace safety? Instead of the legislative representative writing a letter, can't we write a letter? Can't we engage our members? Can't we have a better safe conditions? Can't we advocate for that, not just as representatives or legislative representatives or a general president, but as 200,000 members for better conditions? And I want to relate this to the 3 deaths in June and the 4 others that we lost throughout the year. I don't think people know. I know I didn't understand the hazards and the conditions that you all work under. And we need to make sure that we share that message. And maybe it just can't be the legislative representative. Maybe it needs to be Harry, Susie, and Johnny sending a letter in. That's something we can organize. That's something we can do to improve our working conditions, to mobilize, to energize our membership. Give them the value of being part of something bigger, being part of this union. We're trying new messaging tools. I don't know if you've seen them or not, but we're asking our members to text to 90975. So we have coordinating groups in each state trying to gather this information and be more nimble with the states. We have at least 2 in, I think, 45 states. We'd like to have more. So there again, if you have interest in this, let us know. We're asking our members to go to smartaction.org. There again, trying a new way, a new method to engage them, to get them involved, whether it's a safe workplace, or whether it's a job, or whether it's an action for some other reason. Maybe it's an action for a PEB, where we engage them and mobilize them for the good of the union and really for their own well-being. And how do we speak with one voice when we walk out of that room? How do we speak with one voice when we walk out of this room? Because I believe when we add your voice, your voice, your voice, and your voice, that's our voice louder. And when our voice is louder and we're all pulling on the rope together, we have a better opportunity at better representing our members, better working conditions, and better wages, and a better life for ourselves and our members. As our voice gets louder and we harness that enthusiasm and that passion, we will do better. So I want you to mark that moment as well. How do we go home and make sure that we get the attention of all 200,000 members? How do we get them to work together on issues and the plan that you're going to take home with you here and work on it and hone it when you get back home? So General Secretary Treasurer McLeese and I, we look forward to working with you throughout the day and tomorrow in your sessions and throughout everything that's going to happen over the next couple of days as well as yesterday. And if you have anything you want to share with us, please feel comfortable and willing to come up and say hi. So thank you for your attention. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, General President Sellers. There's one part of the General President's message that really resonates with me, and I hope there was a lot of it that resonates with all of you, but when he said something about we don't do a good enough job of selling what we do. And I think that's very true. I think it's true of all of us, myself included. the hardest part about the job isn't even so much doing it as it is letting people know what you did so that they realize the value of the union to them. And so I hope that's something that we all remember. With that, I'll just say that remind you to go on use your smart app. We want to encourage people to continue to use that, and particularly remember that if you have questions for President Transportation Division Prevacich, that you go on his Q&A session on the last day, the Wednesday, the last session, go to the comments and insert your questions. Other than that, enjoy your morning, attend your workshops, and we'll see you at lunch. Thank you.